Mic check. Okay, okay. Good morning, guys. Good morning. What is up? What's up? Rise and shine. The continuation of Sarah Boone taking the stand. You just get the live feed up. They haven't started yet. They're getting settled in the courtroom. All right. What are you guys thinking, man, with Sarah? What do you guys think? What's up, Rock and Shell, Aaliyah, Steve, Micah, Mama, Mustard Mama? How you doing? I went for a walk. Not today though, but did I go yesterday? It was the day before. I need to get back. There she is. Whoa, in chains, man. Hold on, let me show you guys. Whoa, chains. You guys believe that Sarah can get off on the battered woman syndrome? Oh, thank you, Leah. Appreciate that. Yeah, I cut the hair pretty short. Next time I go back, I might do like a medium fade, but I just kind of cleaned it up. Maybe I'll grow it back. Maybe I won't. I don't know. I always like every couple of years go through like either grow it out or just cut it short and reverse and whatever. But I hope you guys are doing good. I updated the tank last night. Let me see if I can focus on it for a second. Eventually, I'm going to change out that whole fish tank one of these weekends. Because the gravel, you can see the gravel's not, it's all uneven and the substrate's all uneven. The bottom's a mess. So eventually, I'm going to have to get all the fish out. I'm going to have to take them all out and put them in a different tank. Maybe even in a bucket. I don't have to buy a new tank. I could just put them in a bucket maybe. And then take I'm just going to put soil in there. Take out all the gravel, take out that substrate crap. There's this beautiful aqua soil you can get. It's so beautiful. And it's not messy. That's what I want to do. I want to change out the whole bottom part, put the aqua soil, and then put all the plants back there and then put the shrimp back in there. And I removed the top. I got a new light, removed the top. And I have plants on top of it too. There's this whole hydroponic system. It looks dope as hell, but I don't want to do too much. I'm already doing a lot. Eventually, I might get this whole little thing that goes in the back, and you put all these little plants. And they even have a thing where like there's smoke coming from it, some type of, I don't know what it does, hydration or whatever. But and I added a new piece of wood in there with a plant on it. They love that new piece of wood. It's just like full of plants in there. There's a lot of hiding spots for them. So that's the project. Oh, and I got a tank we got a tank in the bedroom too. That one looks pretty. It's a smaller tank, but it looks very pretty. I'm gonna go take a picture. I'll be right back. Let me take a picture. I'll show you guys. Good morning. Okay. So it's still a work in progress, but I just wanted to get everything in there to start cycling stuff. Come on. Want to focus. That's like the top of it. I have to clean up some of the soil in there, but that's what the soil looks like. The aqua soil. It's really, really nice. I didn't really want to put those rocks in there, but one of the pieces of wood apparently floats. It won't go down. So I had to weigh it down with rocks. And the tank was looking clearer, but I stuck my hand in there just now to kind of adjust some things so it's cloudy right now. I really would like to take those 2 rocks off, but if I take the 2 rocks, the thing is going to float up. But it's a cool looking tank. Will this trial's already over, Wilson. It's already pretty much at the end. The prosecution rested, and the defendant, Sarah Boone, took the stand yesterday, and today we'll see if she's done today. I don't know if she's the only witness or they're going to have like a doctor or somebody come testify. But the trial's already pretty much towards the end. Once drifting wood soaks up the water, it'll stay. Oh, maybe it'll take a few days. Okay, good. I hope so, because that'd be nice if I can remove the rocks, because the rocks is not really supposed to be a part of it, and it's a different color. It kind of takes away from the whole aesthetic thing that we were trying to go for. But I figured, yeah, let the everything sit in there, let the water cycle. It's gonna take a while anyway, and we'll see how it goes. Oh yeah, I haven't really covered the whole trial, Wilson, because I don't know. I feel like the audience has shifted a bit on my channel, because we're always doing like breaking news and like standoffs and barricades. Most of those people that are into that are not going to be into sitting for 8 hours watching a trial. I think it's kind of shifted. Like, I don't really intend to cover trials until I think maybe Tupac. I feel like we got to do Tupac and like Brian Koberger whenever that happens. I feel like we got to do those, you know, but I don't think I'm going to lock myself in anymore for like 8, 9, 10 hours, especially if the numbers aren't there. But Sarah Boone, we talked about her for so many times for a long time. So I wanted to see her testify. Gotta see it. Okay. Let's see if I want to take that picture of her where she was in chains. So see if I can make it a thumbnail or add it to the thumbnail, maybe. Let's see. Sarah, don't hold my hands. She's a nice lady. Don't really have a good picture of it. The Diddy trial would be interesting. Diddy trial, they're not going to stream it. That's the thing. There might be reporters and they're doing, live record, like live tweeting. If that's the case, it might be worth covering because there's a lot of viewers for that.
Good morning, everyone. Madam Clerk's going to go ahead and call the case to order.
Case number 2020 CF2603, State of Florida, State of Charged and up names for the record, beginning with the state.
David Castro on behalf of the state. Waden J for the state.
Defense.
James Phillips for Ms. Boone.
Oh, that was so much fun covering the Murdoch trial. Yeah.
Ms. Boone, raise your right hand to be sworn. Please do you swear or affirm that the testimony you give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. I do. Thank you.
And good morning. Can you state your full name and date of birth for the record for me?
Sarah Boone, 10-10-77.
Ms. Boone is seated at counsel's table wearing a dark gray suit jacket and a maroon blouse. She is in custody. However, she's not in any restraints, so we will be continuing to stand as our jury enters and exits. State, are there any housekeeping matters we need to address this morning before we bring in our panel? Defense.
Judge, I don't know if you got the email last night of the potential witnesses we're going to call.
In addition to the one I received this morning, yes, sir.
Okay, Dr. Harper did get in last night after midnight. She was over at the hotel, but in addition, we may recall the phone extraction expert. She's not on the list.
Okay, understood. All right, are we ready to bring in our panel?
Looks like they got a doctor or two maybe coming.
Let's go ahead and stand and bring in our panel.
All right, well, today they're starting quick. Alan Thrifts, good morning. Jojo. Morning, Wilson. Infinity, how you doing? Yo, Johnny Depp was amazing too. I don't think there'll ever be another trial like that. There's some trials. I don't know if we'll ever see another one like that. Just epic. Memorable. Sarah smiling. Okay, let me see what's going on in the world of Twitter while we wait. What's going on with the news this morning? Boom, boom, boom. E. coli outbreak from McDonald's Quarter Pounders. Oh, no. Oh, no. The CDC is reporting that over 49 people from the 10 states have become severely ill due to an E. coli outbreak. Oh. The majority of those affected are from Colorado, which has 27 cases. In Nebraska, which has 9. 10 people have been hospitalized. One older individual in Colorado has died. Additionally, one child currently hospitalized. Everyone reported eating McDonald's before their illness began. Wow. Many specifically mentioning having a quarter pounder. Following this news, McDonald's shares have dropped 10%. They'll be back in 2 days, their stocks. All aboard.
Hear ye, hear ye, hear ye.
Hear ye, hear ye, hear ye. The Menendez brothers. Okay.
State,
We
you
will
recognize our jury.
Yes, Your Honor.
Defense.
Apparently, we'll know by Friday if the Menendez brothers will be released. Interesting. Curious to see what's up with that.
The jury, good morning. Welcome back to 12 Alpha of the Orange County Courthouse. I hope you had a great evening. If you could, again, just by a show of hands, you complied with the court's instructions for the overnight break. Let record reflect all hands have been raised. Members of the jury, at this point in time, the defense is going to continue with their evidence and testimony presentation. And I'm going to ask them to call their first witness at this time. Mr. Owens, you may proceed, sir.
At this time, the defense calls Deputy Ramirez Delgado.
Oh, I thought we're done with Sarah. That was it. Who? Did I miss that? The other day yesterday? What?
Please swear or affirm that the testimony you give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. I swear.
Good morning. You can be seated. And can you please
Oh,
state
shit.
and spell your name for the record? For me?
I thought she was still testifying.
My name is Jessica, first name Jessica, Jessica. First last name is Ramirez, Ramirez. Second last name is Delgado, Delgado.
Thank you, ma'am. You may inquire, sir.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning, sir.
Ma'am, how are you employed?
I am a reserve deputy with the Orange County Sheriff's Office.
And how long have you been employed with the sheriff's department?
7 years.
Back on July the 25th of 2018, how were you employed at that time?
I was a full-time deputy sheriff for the agency.
On that date, ma'am, did you have the occasion, due to your duties, to report or to go to 4748 France Lane, apartment number 3?
Yes, sir.
Do you recall what you were going there for, the purpose?
Yes, sir. I was a backup deputy for a call involving a male kicking a female in the face. So it came out as a domestic call.
Okay. And was it another officer who also responded?
Yes, sir. He was the primary.
Okay. Ma'am, while you were there, did you have contact with Sarah Boone?
Yes, sir.
While having contact with Ms. Boone, were you able to observe any injuries?
Yes, sir.
Person?
Yes, sir. She had swelling and bruising in her right eye.
And
Oh, man.
were you able to make contact with Mr. George Torres?
Yes, sir.
Were you able to notice any injuries on his person?
Yes, sir. He had red markings and some abrasions around his neck.
Ma'am, at a certain point in time, did you place Ms. Boone under arrest?
Yes, sir. I detained her and placed her in my vehicle.
Ma'am, at that time, do you recall or remember Ms. Boone asking you, "Why am I in trouble?"
Yes, sir.
And without saying what you said, but did you respond to her?
Yes, sir.
After that, ma'am, do you remember Ms. Boone asking you, "Why?" "Because I fucking fought back."
Yes, sir.
If I can have one moment.
Yes, sir.
No further questions.
Thank you. Any cross-examination?
During the course of your investigation, you or the other responding deputies spoke to Mr. Torres as well.
Yes, sir.
After concluding all of your investigation, which involved talking to both Mr. Torres and to Ms. Boone and making your observations of the two of them, did you all make final decisions about how to handle your investigation?
The other deputy, which at the time was Deputy Zito, was the one that made that determination.
Okay. But collectively, what you all looked at was statements from Ms. Boone and Mr. Torres, correct?
Yes, sir.
And your physical observations of both persons?
Yes.
And then whatever else you may have observed on scene?
Yes, sir.
And do you take into account people's demeanor when they are giving you statements, when assessing their credibility?
Yes, sir.
No other questions?
Any redirect examination?
No, Your Honor.
Can this witness be released?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
It's good old shrimp.
Defense, call your next witness.
At this time, the defense calls Deputy John Alden.
Oh, that
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you should give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Sir, good morning. Can you state and spell your name for the record?
John Alden, John Alden.
All right, thank you, sir. You may be seated. Mr. Henderson, you may inquire.
Good morning, sir.
Morning.
Sir, how are you employed? How are you employed?
I'm employed with the Orange County Sheriff's Office as a corporal.
Back on August the 28th of 2019, how were you employed?
I was a deputy in the Uniform Patrol Division in Sector 2.
As a part of your job duties that day, did you have the occasion to respond to 4748 France Lane, number 3?
Yes.
What was the purpose?
There ended up being a battery call.
And, sir, were you the lead officer on this case?
Yes.
Were there any other backup officers there with you?
I believe so.
Sir, on that date, August the 28th of 2019, did you come in contact with Sarah Boone?
Yes.
Sir, on that date, did you observe any injuries on Sarah Boone?
I observed redness on the left side of her neck and what to be an old injury to her right eye.
Sir, on August 28th of 2019, did you come in contact with George Torres?
Yes.
And did you notice any injuries on Mr. Torres?
Yes. He had some redness on it by his left eye.
that day was Mr. Torres placed under arrest?
Yes.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Any cross-examination?
Yes. Is it fair to say that Mr. Torres had quite a few marks on him?
From my report, I remember marking the left redness by his left eye.
And did you have your body-worn camera activated when you responded to this call?
I believe so.
All right. And so that would be the best evidence of both video and audio as to what occurred while you were on scene.
It would, especially since this happened 5 years ago now.
And did Mr. Torres refuse to say what happened that day?
He did.
Based on the conclusion of your investigation, which involved talking to Ms. Boone and attempting to talk to Mr. Torres, as well as your visual observations of both them and the scene, is that how you all reach your conclusions?
Yes.
No other questions?
Any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
Can this witness be released?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. J?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Defense, you can call your next witness.
Next. Oh, it's gonna be fun. Election night, it's gonna be crazy. We're gonna have a little party. I wonder if we'll get the results that night, or is it gonna run into the next day. Uh, 30%.
Judge, may we approach him?
Yes.
Oh, one of the dogs is snoring. I kept hearing like a sound. I'm like, I know I'm hearing something, but every time I took my headphones off, I couldn't hear it. And then now I just took it off at the right time. Hear him snoring, sleeping. He love is like a marching band. Sarah. There's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff happening that I missed out on.
Defense, you can call your next witness.
I wanted to cover the Elon thing where he was doing those town halls.
Judge, at this time, the defense calls Deputy Capsell or Detective, excuse me.
I want to go get some water. I'll be right back. I'm going to put some magnesium in there too. Get a little relaxation. Morning, Michael. What's up? Welcome. Probably get the results the next day. That's what I thought, Jacqueline. Because I don't know if it was the last time or one of the recent times. It was like it went into the next day. There was one time I think we almost got most of it during the night. It was really fun to watch. I haven't been watching the Leilani trial, but I heard it's really good. I maybe missed out covering that trial. I probably should have covered it.
Good morning again. Could you state your full name and date of birth for the record? Or, I'm sorry, full name and spell it for us.
It's Chelsea Capsell, Chelsey. Last name is Koepsell.
Thank you. Counselor, you may inquire.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
In relation to this case, on February the 26th of 2020, did you have the occasion to interview Abraham Marino?
Yes, I did.
Was that interview recorded, ma'am?
Yes, it was.
You remember, as part of that interview, did Mr. Marino tell you that he had had contact with Sarah Boone on February the 24th of 2020?
Are you asking the night of the incident when police were called out?
Yes, the next morning.
The day that we were called.
That you were called out.
Okay.
The 24th.
So yes, he did have contact with her, but it wasn't in the morning. It was while we were there.
While you were there?
Yes.
Okay. What time did you get there? That's probably what's going on.
I got there around 14:20 hours, which would be 2:20 in the afternoon.
Okay. So the afternoon on the 24th.
No, it was later. I recall, I believe I was doing paperwork in my vehicle, so it would have been at some point during the investigation, but it wasn't, I didn't notice him until, I'm not sure if I noticed him until before or after Sarah was interviewed.
All right. But to his interview part, the interview, did he tell you in the interview that he had had contact with Miss Boone on that day?
Yes, he did.
Did he tell you at that time that Miss Boone had made a statement to him?
Yes, he did.
Do you remember what that statement was?
I don't wish to quote what he stated. So I don't know the exact verbiage, but he basically replayed what, I'm not sure if he replayed what exactly occurred that day, but I do know he mentioned something about, she mentioned being dragged down the stairs a couple days prior.
Did he say to you during that interview that Sarah Boone told us that a couple of days ago they had gotten into a fight where he grabbed her by her hair and dragged her down the steps?
I would assume that he's reading my report, and that does sound similar to what my report should say.
So this statement was given on the 27th of February. I'm sorry, the 26th of February. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I would.
Okay. The contact and the statement that Ms. Boone made to Mr. Moreno was on the 24th of February. Is that correct?
Repeat the question, I'm sorry.
When Mr. Moreno is saying that Ms. Boone came up to him and made this statement that we just talked about,
Yes,
that was on February the 24th. Is that correct?
that is correct.
So when she said a couple of days ago, that would have brought it back to February the 22nd. Is that correct?
Potentially, yes.
Ma'am, during that interview with you, did Mr. Moreno ever indicate to you that when he had contact with Ms. Boone on the 24th, that Sarah Boone told him what happened was an accident? Did he say that Sarah Boone stated that she was teaching him a lesson and things got out of hand and that she fell asleep?
I don't recall the entirety of that being accurate. Yeah, I don't recall the entirety of what he just said being accurate.
Do you remember him saying that at all?
He did say that she had, I believe he said on the recording, passed out. So that's why, like, part of the statements might be accurate, but...
Okay. Ma'am, would it refresh your memory if you were to see the recorded statement?
His recorded statement?
Yes.
Transcription?
Yes.
Sure, yeah, great.
May I approach the witness?
You may.
Ma'am, take your time. Wait for that.
Okay.
when you are ready, just let me know.
Okay. I don't recall all the statements that you asked or the way you asked it, but
Would it help if I repeat it?
sure, yeah.
Okay.
You asked, like, you said multiple statements, so
Yes, ma'am.
this was a like 11-minute interview.
All right. The statement would be that Sarah Boone stated to Mr. Marino that she was teaching him a lesson and things got out of hand and that she fell asleep. And I'm wanting to know
Did you say, okay, I thought I heard you say passed out the first time. I'm not sure if you said passed out or fell asleep.
fell asleep.
Fell asleep, okay.
And what I'm asking is there any indication that he told you that statement on the date of that interview on the 26th?
Sorry, I'm trying to go to the part where we talked about that.
Yes, ma'am, take your time.
Okay.
Carly, good morning. Yeah, and I only have one window in here. It's not even facing the sun.
Okay, so
Bodie, good morning.
like I had stated,
Thank you.
there were certain things that I thought was
Body.
accurate from your
Body.
statement. He stated, I don't really, do I just read exactly what it says? Do you need like the number next to it or anything?
Yes, I have no problem if you reading what he said.
Okay, then she,
I would object.
Approach.
Oh.
Ma'am, you cannot read the statement at this time.
okay.
Thank you. You may continue, Mr. Henderson.
He described,
Hang on.
No.
Just wait for a question,
so
okay?
sorry.
Oh,
It's okay.
oh shit.
Yeah,
oh, slow
sorry.
down. Oh.
Ma'am,
Oh.
anywhere in that interview, do you see reference to this statement that Sarah stated that she was teaching him a lesson and things got out of hand and that she fell asleep?
no to the two parts, the first two parts of your question. I heard passed out the first time you asked me this question, and that's why I said that part of it was accurate, because he did say that she passed out in his statement. That was what Sarah told him.
Okay, did she say she was teaching him a lesson? Is that in there?
No,
And things got out of hand. Is that in there?
no, I don't recall that.
May I approach the witness?
Yes.
And again, ma'am, this interview was on February the 26th of 2020. Is that correct?
Yes, it was.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Boom. I'm thinking maybe they'll be
Any
done today.
cross-examination?
I mean, they're moving pretty fast. Sarah Boone's done. I think they said it was a doctor or something that was going to testify. That might take the longest, maybe. I don't know.
Questions, John?
All right, thank you. Can this witness be released?
Yes, Your Honor.
State?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Defense? Call the next witness.
I believe Dr. Brandon is here now, Judge.
Okay, that's the doctor.
Making sure.
Let's see if I can show this. Where's T-Spursy? She made this post yesterday. This person on Twitter, nice lady. But she was pointing out the black guy, that's Sarah Boone. Remember that yesterday? I think they showed this. It's a weird ass black guy. It almost looks like, I don't know. It's weird, right? Somebody said it looks like the Amber Heard kit. Somebody in the comments. Where's that at? It's weird. I don't know. Damn, they really locked up everything over there, huh? Mr. Jones, good morning. I didn't get a new tank. Well, actually, I did. It's in the bedroom.
Yes, sir.
Okay, they're approaching. This tank here, I did some changes last night. Let's see if I can show it. I removed the top. I bought a different light for it, and I have some plants that are on top of it that are dunking into the tank. I made some changes. Eventually, like I was saying, I was gonna get a tank to take these fish out, but I'm actually just gonna put them in a bucket. I think I'm just gonna if I can find all the shrimp in there, take the shrimp, put them in the bucket, and then start draining some of the water. I just want to take out all this gravel in there. See how like uneven it is and all that stuff? I want to take out that gravel and the substrate and just put aqua soil. It looks really nice with aqua soil. So that's the plan. But I did get one for the bedroom. Small tank for the bedroom. Looks really nice. Still in the works. Yeah, it looks weird. So it's a really weird black eye. Let me see what else is what's going on in the news, what's going on around the world. I had to order a printer. My printer crapped on me. I had to order a new printer. Supposed to be coming today. I've had that printer for years and years. It just Trump cancels all his events in favor of one of the worst people. I guess that was an article. Trump is supposed to be, for those that are interested, might not be, but he's supposed to be recording an interview with Joe Rogan on Friday, which that's going to do some crazy numbers. I don't know if it's going to drop Friday. I don't know how long it takes for them to put it out, but it's going to be crazy. No. Yeah. The Secret Service is looking into how a suspected drunk driver driving the wrong way on the interstate came this close to Kamala's motorcade in Milwaukee last night. All right, let's check this out.
Take a look at the close call captured on video. The white car passes Vice President Harris's motorcade almost immediately. You can see it's moving slowly in the wrong direction. The driver passes all of the vehicles in the motorcade. The last car, a Milwaukee County Sheriff's deputy, pulls the driver.
Damn. Yeah, I want to know what happened. Oh, they took off the video. They should have stormed his ass. One of the cop cars should have turned around and crashed into him or something.
Your Honor, at this time, the defense would call Dr. Michael Brown.
Oh, they ended up stopping the person. Okay. They took him into custody. Yeah, I think so, Chiefs. I think it probably will break the record. No, I haven't seen that. I don't know that. Florida driver. Nobody can drive here, man. Oh, I gotta focus me.
I do. Doctor, good morning. Could you state and spell your name for the record for us?
Michael Brandon. B-R-A-N-N-O-N.
All right, thank you. Counselor, you may inquire.
Thank you. Dr. Brandon, good morning.
Good morning.
Ms. Fry, having just traveled from Miami to Orlando.
Yes.
Is that not correct? Okay.
It was a good drive.
Okay, great.
Would
you please describe for the jury your background, training, and experience, both in forensic psychology as well as battered women's syndrome?
Sure. So I'm a psychologist licensed in the state of Florida. I have a bachelor's degree in psychology. That's from a university called Nova University. I also have a master's degree in psychology. I received that in 1980, also in psychology. And I received my doctoral degree in psychology after a year internship where I worked with severely mentally ill individuals in Hialeah, Florida. In 1988, I finished my degree requirements for my doctorate in psychology. And in 1990, I was licensed as a psychologist. I've been operating as a psychologist since then, since 1990. Originally, I started off doing the work that most people kind of think about when they think about psychologists, doing therapy, counseling with people, helping them through with their problems, things like that. In 1994, I began on a career almost quite accidentally as a forensic psychologist when I testified in my first case in front of a jury. And from that time on, I've been doing mostly forensic psychology. My practice very quickly changed from that time on. I'm currently the co-director of the Institute for Behavioral Sciences and the Law, and anywhere between 80 and 90% of all my work now is related to some legal or court-related matter in the ways in which mental health interfaces or impacts or helps to give opinions about various legal issues. I've taught rather extensively in the area of forensic psychology. I teach to mostly legal audiences, but oftentimes too I speak to groups of psychology students wanting to sit up here and do what I'm doing as well. Make long drives and then come up here and talk to people about cases. I also currently on the staff, the adjunct faculty staff for the School of Psychiatry at Florida Atlantic University. I help to train their forensic psychiatrists, so not just psychologists, but psychiatrists in terms of doing this work as a psychologist or as a psychiatrist, a mental health professional who gives opinions in the courtroom.
And are you also required to update your educational background and knowledge as a forensic psychologist?
Yes, sir. So every 2 years we're required to get 40 continuing education credits to maintain our license. And part of that is we have to, on a regular basis, update our work in domestic violence or battered women syndrome. So we have to take those courses. We're all required, whether you're a forensic psychologist or not, to take that coursework. So as part of our requirements, we also have to take separate coursework in regards to domestic violence as a general term, or intimate partner violence. But along with that comes discussion as well of battered spouse, or what's oftentimes called battered person syndrome now.
And I apologize, I'm kind of bouncing around here, Doctor. I apologize again. For the uninitiated, just exactly what do you mean by forensic psychology?
So forensic psychology is a division of psychology. Most people don't think about that as often when they think about psychologists. But forensic psychologists are individuals who have degrees in psychology who are working to help to answer questions that come up in the legal system. It could be in criminal cases like we're here for today, answering various criminal questions, giving opinions about those questions. Or it could be in other settings like family settings, divorce proceedings, or sometimes civil settings like personal injury. Someone's claiming some emotional damage or something has happened to them. So forensic psychology is really the way that we use the science of psychology to help give opinions about various legal matters.
Now, what is the DSM or the DSM-5?
So the DSM it stands for Diagnostic and Statistical Manual. It's kind of our code book, if you will, to help us to know what the different symptoms are for different mental health disorders, whether it's major depression or schizophrenia or anxiety. So it gives us a code book of here's the criteria you have to meet in order to have that diagnosis. And then we're able to utilize that in terms of either treatment, so even insurance billing, but being able to inform patients too about what condition we think that they're suffering from. It's been updated many times over the years. It started at just DSM, and now it's at the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual 5th edition, text revised. So we've gone through a lot of revisions over the years to try to fine-tune in an empirical or scientific way what the elements are, if you will, of various mental health conditions.
Now, you've been asked to testify today in regards to battered women syndrome. Is the battered women syndrome identified or located within the DSM-5?
So it is not. It is not a diagnostic category in the DSM-5 or other coding books as well. There's others besides the DSM. That's just the most popular one. But it's not a formal diagnosis that it is contained within that book, that classification manual that I just told you about.
Within your field of forensic psychology, however, is there a subcategory that is located within the DSM-5 that experts would recognize as a DSM diagnosis?
Yes, sir.
And what is that, sir?
So that category would be in the trauma section of the DSM-5 TR. There's a whole category on trauma disorders, and it's most closely related to something that we call post-traumatic stress disorder. That isn't the only trauma disorder, but that's the one that what used to be called battered women syndrome, now I refer to it as battered person syndrome, but all of it really is more connected to a trauma disorder like post-traumatic stress disorder.
Now, you testify in criminal matters. Do you also testify? You indicated also on personal injury cases and emotional. Oh, that would be civil, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. In your experience, you've testified as an expert, as a forensic psychologist. You testified for, and today you're testifying for the defense, or were called by the defense. Do you also testify for the state of Florida or other states within this country?
Yes to both of those. I've testified in other states. I also testify for both the prosecution, the state or government, depending if it's federal or if it's a state case, and also for the defense. So I really get appointments and hired by both sides.
About how many times have you testified?
Wow. At last count, it was about 1,500 times. It's over that, way over that now. That was from a few years ago. But I testify in a lot of different kinds of hearings and trials over the course of, mostly in Florida, but in other states as well.
Now, you're familiar with the fact that there is a special jury instruction that's been recognized by the Florida Supreme Court.
Approach.
Yeah, there's been some type of bomb threat at Birmingham Airport. This is in the UK. There was a bomb threat. There's no live streams now happening. There's some clips on Twitter. Everybody seems pretty relaxed, I guess, but I guess they're gonna have to go and check everything. Bum bum bum. I wonder what's gonna happen today.
Objection is sustained.
Friday I don't know. They said by Friday we should hear about the Menendez brothers. That might be interesting if they're gonna walk. I think they'll probably walk, or I don't know, maybe have a less. I think they'll probably let them go. I think.
Person syndrome. Are there other synonyms or similar names for what you're describing, in particular battered spouse syndrome?
Well, we talk about it in terms of trauma disorders like post-traumatic stress disorder, but the way when it's applied to the legal system is called battered wife, or that was the original terminology for it, battered wife syndrome or battered person syndrome. So it really depends on your setting. So in this setting, we oftentimes talk about this particular condition that I've been asked to talk about today, is really referred to as battered spouse syndrome.
Okay. And have you been asked to give your opinion as a legal expert and on battered spouse syndrome?
Yes, sir.
How frequently have you been asked to do that?
I've been involved in about 100 cases of just that alone. I've been involved in some sort of testimony about 50 times.
And you indicated that you testified for the state, you testified for the defense, you testified in state cases, federal cases. Could you break down on a percentage basis the number of times you testified for the state versus testifying for the defense?
It's really close in terms of the last time we looked at it, it was about 50-50. On most cases, like for instance, if there's a case that involves battered spouse, potentially battered spouse or battered wife syndrome, I'm usually called by the defense first because they raise the issue. If you're called by the prosecution, whether it be federal or state, what oftentimes happens is it's in response to a defense expert that's been called. So do I agree or disagree with that other expert? So I'm usually, the call usually comes first from the defense, but in terms of who I'm hired by, it's pretty even. It's about 50-50.
Now, this time, Your Honor, I will proffer the witness as an expert in the field of forensic psychology.
Yes, approach.
Approach. I wonder if this might be the last witness. I'm not sure. I know they're going to bring on this doctor. We'll have to see. We'll have to see.
Objection is sustained. Wait.
Buffalo chicken pizza? I never tried that. There was one time I tried this like cheeseburger pizza. It was nasty. it was just kind of, not nasty, but it was just like it
Mr.
wasn't.
Beck, you may continue.
Cheeseburger pizza. Buffalo chicken actually sounds good.
Has battered spouse syndrome been accepted, to your knowledge, in the Florida court system?
Yes, sir.
Objection, legal conclusion?
Sustained.
Can you describe the classic system or systemology wherein an individual might necessarily suffer and then exhibit symptoms of battered women syndrome?
Yes. So battered spouse syndrome is a woman, usually a woman's response. Doesn't have to be, but that's a classic historical research went into how women respond in situations in which there's intimate partner violence, when they've been the victim of violence. Now we know, of course, in other kinds of relationships, men can be a victim of it as well, or as, whether it's a heterosexual or homosexual relationship, that both men and women can be victims. But we still know the majority of those individuals that are diagnosed with that condition or given that condition, classified with that condition, are women.
Bless you.
We do know that it's a reaction, a strategy that's developed by the person who's being abused to someone who's abusing them in an intimate partner situation. And essentially what they're doing is they've made a determination that they can't effectively escape from the abuse. They can't just leave for some reason. They feel in danger, or they've been threatened if they leave that something bad will happen to them. So it's a cognitive or thinking strategy on the part of the person being abused that I have to develop some coping skills or ways of protecting myself, and protecting myself or maybe even loved ones as well from some form of imminent violence or danger or lethality. Something bad will happen to me if I don't develop a way of handling this abuse, this constant abuse that's coming towards me. So the battered wife syndrome is really a way of thinking. It's a psychological change that happens with a victim in terms of the way they cope and strategize to stay safe for themselves and other loved ones as well, oftentimes.
I'm going to ask a really silly question, if I may, Doctor. I don't know if you've noticed a bruise across the bridge of my nose this morning.
I did see that when I come in. Yes, sir.
Okay. This weekend... okay. Hypothetically, if an individual was digging around in the garbage, the lid fell down and cut his nose, the bridge of his nose wide open, would you, as a forensic psychologist, anticipate, or a psychologist in general, anticipate that there might be a physical or a psychological reaction or response to that degree of trauma?
So I don't know if it would be trauma or not. It could be, depending on the degree of the injury and the pain and things like that. But certainly you'd view that garbage can differently as you approached it. So it changes your psychology or the way that you look at that particular situation or that particular object. So by viewing it differently, you may engage in different behaviors. You may approach it differently. You may have somebody else approach it. You may approach it with both hands up. So it changes your behavior and your thinking about that garbage can.
Does that also apply to interpersonal relationships?
So it certainly can. No two people always react the same way to every situation. Trauma, one person's trauma is not a trauma to another person. But for people who do develop battered spouse syndrome, they do begin to change the way they view the person who's abusing them and what they have to do in order to maintain either their life or their safety, their physical safety in terms of their behavior and interactions with that person.
Now, is there a specific set of criteria that a psychologist, forensic psychologist, would necessarily rely upon in attempting to make a diagnosis or an assessment of battered women syndrome?
Yes, sir.
And what are those criteria?
Well, you'd want to see, one, if some type of abuse has occurred. That abuse can be physical, it can be sexual, it can be emotional, or it can just be the threat of abuse or bad things that's going to happen to you. So there has to be something bad that's happened or that's threatened to be happening over a period of time. So abuse has to be present in order for this to be underway. Without abuse, there's no battered wife syndrome. But that's not enough. There also has to be what's called coercive control. Coercive control is really keeping the person's social interactions, overseen on a regular basis, controlling money, controlling preferences, even TV preferences sometimes, social media, looking at social media that the person is accessing or looking at, who they're talking to on Facebook, who they're texting. So it's a combination of abuse and coercive control that results in a person feeling victimized, but that's still not enough. That person then has to feel like they can't escape from that. They've either been told, if you leave me, you're going to die, or a family member is going to be harmed, your children, your mother, whatever it might be. And as a result of that, they develop strategies to cope with that, acquiescing, pleasing, doing anything they're asked to do, demeaning themselves, allowing themselves to be controlled. All of the things that would fend off, if you will, some abuse or attack or threat to them or someone who surrounds them. So those would be the components that you would need to have, and that dance continues to go on usually repeatedly throughout the course of that relationship.
So I think what you're describing is, in a sense, a subjective nature to the syndrome that's being described.
It's both objective and subjective. So objective in terms of the facts, like what's really happening. A person's being abused, they're being told certain things, there's control over them. But then the subjective part is the person's interpretation of that, their perception of that. So there's really both going on, and they have to kind of work together in order for this syndrome to be formalized and properly diagnosed.
You indicated that there sometimes may be some defense mechanisms that are, or strategies that are devised by the battered individual, the abused individual.
Yes, sir.
In your experience and your training, do controlled substances, alcohol, drugs, frequently appear in your analysis or assessment?
Yes, and the way they appear is they can appear either from the abuser or the abused or both. What can happen from the abuser standpoint is they may only be abusive, or the abuse may become worse if they abuse substances. From the abused standpoint, it may be self-medication. It may be a way of coping with the anxiety that there's going to be something bad that potentially could happen to them or somebody else. It's kind of a way of dealing with walking on the eggshells. So if I use substances, that can deaden the pain, if you will, for me, or help me to forget about it. So it's oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes part of either the abuser's behavior or the abused behavior.
Do they, in your experience, do they, on occasion, actually defend the individual that is abusing them?
That's a very frequent part of this syndrome. Not always, but it's very frequent. It's why interviewing them becomes difficult sometimes, because they're used to explaining away their behavior, the abuser's behavior, my black eye, my missing tooth, his screaming and yelling in the background while I'm talking to mom on the phone. So they're used to making excuses for it. It's part of the coping strategy, trying to explain away this behavior. He's had a bad day. She's, really upset about something else that's going on. She's really never like this at any other time. So defending that person is oftentimes a part of the battered spouse syndrome, and getting the person who's been abused to get them to stop defending them so they can talk about the actual abuse becomes a challenge.
Now, the DSM makes reference on occasion to rule-outs, I assume for the diagnosis that's being applied. What is a rule-out?
A rule-out in our parlance says that we should consider these things before we look at other diagnoses. So, for instance, if we're going to consider schizophrenia, we should rule out substance abuse first, because oftentimes some drugs can create hallucinations and delusions and psychotic symptoms. So there's always rule outs, just like there are for medical conditions. So look for this before you consider this, is really what a rule out is.
Are there specific rule outs for battered women syndrome or PTSD?
Sure. So there's rule outs for everything, because you're considering a number of different conditions before you make a differential diagnosis, or you pick that's the one that I think best fits this person. So yes, there's rule outs for both of those.
For my sake, what is a differential diagnosis?
That's how you decide which one. Whether it's your medical doctor, your psychologist, whoever, it's how they pick the right diagnosis. So you're going through kind of a card catalog in your head, and you're saying, all right, there's symptoms of this, but that's also consistent with symptoms of that. So is it schizophrenia? Is it bipolar disorder? Now I have to ask more questions. It's a decision tree. And that decision tree helps you to inform the person and either make a diagnosis in a legal setting or help to treat them clinically.
Now, if the individual, the psychologist who's doing the evaluation, identifies the presence of certain rule-outs, what is their response professionally to those rule-outs in establishing or assessing the patient?
You have to go down a decision tree, and we all kind of do decision trees in our mind every day about what we should do or shouldn't do in certain situations. It happens automatically. It's more structured when you're doing it professionally. So if you have a concern about substances, then you would kind of take that track and you'd have to ask a lot of questions in that area. So you'd want to know what kind of substances, how often are they using those substances, what kind of effect have those substances had on them before. I just picked one of many possible rule-outs there. But every one of them you'd have to explore or ask additional questions because, of course, you don't want to come up with a wrong diagnosis because in a legal setting, that leads you to a bad opinion. In a clinical setting, it leads to bad treatment.
Now, I want to go back just a second. We talked about the subjective nature of the abused individual's understanding of what's happening. Does this subjective or does the experience that they have suffered result in, on occasion, their experiencing or their anticipating or assuming or imagining a threat that others may not?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Approach!
Ain't nothing but a heartache. Tell me why. In the market for more shrimp. I want hundreds of shrimp. Hundreds of them. You know, the lifespan for these type of shrimp is only 1 to 2 years. I don't even know how much time they've been alive already. For all I know, they could be at their end peak. Give me shrimp. Shrimp. Shrimp, shrimp. Doctor. Dr. Shapiro.
Objection is sustained.
Doctor, from what you described this morning, I think we're talking about a complex and sophisticated process for assessing and diagnosing PTSD, battered women, the matters that you described. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, sir.
And in this instance, this particular matter regarding the state versus Sarah Boone, were you approached about the possibility of doing an assessment as to Sarah Boone?
Approach.
Yeah. Okay. Looking at my insurance. Okay. Are the shrimp those sea monkeys they used to sell the newspapers decades ago? Nah. They're really small shrimp. They're Neocardina family type of shrimp. There's different types of this Neocardina. All different kinds of colors. Those sun-kissed, red, cherry, fire, whatever they call it, fire, blue velvet or something blue. A couple different ones. There's even a black one. Black shrimp looks pretty cool. Oh no, shrimp and garlic butter. Kelly, thank you for the membership. We gotta do a members live too. Update. Dr. Shapiro. Actually, I want to add a different card.
People searching for a missing teenager are going back to court.
Dog, the bounty hunter, and Sebastian Rogers' father filed an injunction against 2 social media influencers in Pennsylvania. They claim the YouTuber and TikToker are obstructing the search for Sebastian Rogers. News 2's Caitlin Quisenberry breaks down statements included in this lawsuit.
An 18-page injunction backed by a 323-page list of exhibits and testimonies was filed last Friday. The plaintiffs include Dog the Bounty Hunter, Sebastian Rogers' father, Seth, and the father's spokesperson, Tony Mathis, as well as YouTuber Andrew Griffin. The lawsuit alleges 2 influencers, a YouTuber and TikToker, created a, quote, coordinated campaign of cyber harassment, false allegations, and witness intimidation. The lawsuit ties back to the search for missing Sumner County teen Sebastian Rogers.
Doctor, when you are retained to do an evaluation in these matters, what is your practice in regards to the assessment proceedings, the assessment efforts?
Well, I'd first want to know what type of an assessment that it is, because there's different methods of approach that you'd use to analyze and be able to give an opinion on whatever question is being asked of you. So the very first goal for me as a forensic psychologist is to isolate what the question is. So what are they asking me to do? Because I want to know, A, can I do that? Am I qualified to do that, or should I refer that to somebody else? Or B, is that something I'm going to have enough time to do and enough resources to do? Then the next thing I would do is start asking questions about specifically what you already have or what can you get to help me answer this question. So right away I'd start to find out what's available. As forensic psychologists, we're supposed to do comprehensive evaluations of whatever the legal issue or question is, and it's supposed to rely on multiple sources of information. So depending again upon the question, I'm trying to then define early on what are those multiple pieces of information I'm going to need to help to try to give an opinion and an educated opinion about that matter.
Have you done an assessment in this particular case?
No, sir.
Can you tell us very briefly whether that was your decision?
Objection, relevance.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Move on.
Objection sustained.
In your experience, doctor,
thank you very much.
Can battered women's syndrome rear its ugly head? For instance, when there are threats to other members of the family, two-legged or four?
So yes, that's very common, that it's not just the person. It increases the terror from someone who's doing the abuse to mention other family members that they might also suffer abuse. So whether it's emotional or physical, those type of things are very common. Not always, but it's very common in the course of domestic violence cases or intimate partner violence cases.
And that fear that's developed by the abused individual may exist contemporaneously with other issues, alcoholism, schizophrenia, and the like. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. They can all be combined together, and certainly that increases if there's other family members that are threatened or live in the same home or close by. That can increase the terror.
20 memberships. Oh my God! Thank you.
To make sure the abuser has more control over the person who's being abused.
Good morning.
Yes, sir.
Oh, it's so nice of you. Thank you, Mustard. Very nice of you.
In doing an assessment, doctor, do you look at outside materials?
Yes, sir, always.
And what kind of outside materials do you necessarily review in order to make this assessment?
Specifically to battered woman syndrome?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So specific to this, you'd want to look at a lot of different sources of information because you're trying to make a diagnosis if there's a trauma-related disorder, but you're also trying to figure out if there's the other elements necessary to make the diagnosis as well, like abuse that's been chronic over a period of time, and that the person feels they can't leave that situation, and if other people have been threatened. So you'd want to know things like not only what the facts are of the particular incident, usually some crime that's been committed, but you'd want to know the history of those behaviors. Has anyone else seen those? Are there people you can talk to? You know, friends, neighbors, bosses, anybody who's seen or heard of this abuse before? Have there been medical visits where the person has actually been damaged and shown up, made some other excuse, they slipped or fell or whatever it might be? You'd want to do psychological testing as a forensic psychologist because we have very good tests that help us to determine whether someone's suffering from a trauma-based disorder or not. You'd want to know if the person who'd been accused of the crime for this type of evaluation made any statements to the police. If they did, you'd want to hear that statement. Or has there been a 911 call or calls? If that's happened, you'd want to hear that too. So any evidence you could collect, and these are some of those questions I was talking to you about before, you'd want to ask the person who's trying to hire you in the beginning, well, tell me what you have, because you'd want to see whether or not you're going to be able to make this analysis or not. So it's not good enough just to talk to the person, because that's just one form of information. It's almost like being a behavioral detective, if you will, as a forensic psychologist, because we're trying to get as much evidence wrapping around our interview with the person as possible to be able to guide our questions, but inform us and see whether there's what we call convergent validity. It's a fancy way of saying, does everything agree with each other? Does everything connect in a way that it all sort of makes sense? Or are these strange conflicting pieces of evidence that we need to explain away, or it just doesn't fit the criteria? So it's a rather comprehensive and complex evaluation that has to be conducted to come up with this. And the final piece I'd say about it is that because oftentimes the abused person is defending still the person that they've oftentimes committed a crime against, it takes a bit of time to get to where you need to go. With all victims of trauma, whether you're talking about situations where you're doing therapy or you're doing an analysis in this type of setting, a criminal setting, it usually takes some time to break through that and get them to trust you to talk about the trauma, but to stop defending the person and talk about the abuse and how they felt about the abuse. Your goal, if you will, is to be able to see what's happening in that situation through the abused person's eyes. If you look at it through your eyes, often it doesn't seem to make sense. But if you look at it through their eyes, if it meets the criteria for a battered spouse, then you can better understand their world and what they're dealing with.
And real briefly, some of the things that you are evaluating when you examine, particularly the individual themselves, you're looking for anxiety and or fear?
Yes.
Low self-esteem?
Yes.
Are you looking for depression?
Yes.
Are you looking for any form of social or interpersonal withdrawal?
Withdrawal, especially if it's forced withdrawal, controlled withdrawal, if there's consequences.
Yeah, I got all that shit. And
with my
what?
family, my friends, calling them on the phone, texting them. So especially in that context.
That's it?
Sure, that can be part of it.
What is Stockholm Syndrome, real briefly?
So it's really adapting to someone who's captive or taking over a person, controlling their life, sort of adapting to that situation. The famous model of that would be many, many decades ago, a woman called Patty Hearst, who was kidnapped. But it's taking on the beliefs and taking on an acceptance, if you will, of a kind of a captive situation. And in these situations with women who have been abused, who meet the criteria for battered spouse syndrome, they oftentimes adapt, defend, and take on in an acquiescent way that this is okay and I'm part of this situation as opposed to opposed to the situation.
Will this syndrome exhibit itself in physical attributes?
It can, at times, even physical illness at times.
Inability to sleep, inability to keep food down, and those type of things.
Sure. Yes, sir.
Would that individual potentially experience hypervigilance?
Well, that's a large part of it. Of any trauma-based disorder is hypervigilance. What changes when you've been traumatized, any kind of trauma, not just abuse, but what changes is your perception of danger. So whether it's the lid of the garbage can hitting you on your nose, or whether it's someone being abusive towards you, those situations change your perception of danger. So you no longer see that object or that person in the same way. You have a foreboding sense of danger could occur. So other people may not perceive it with that person. He's so nice at work, or he's nice in these other settings, or he's so great on the softball field, but at home he's different. So that person who's being abused, their perception changes.
Does that include denial?
It could include denial, and oftentimes that's part of the explanation. The defensiveness of that person is the denial of how bad things are that are going on.
Thanks, Doctor.
Morning, Emma. How you doing? Oh, no problem. Damn, 6 people in Ohio indicted for voter fraud. Wow.
Good morning, Doctor.
Good morning.
I thought they said that doesn't happen, doesn't
Good
exist.
to see you again.
I thought you couldn't even talk about that shit.
So there's a subjective component to trauma, is what I understand you're saying, correct?
Always. Yes, sir.
And so hypothetically, a couple could be in a 3.5-year relationship with physical violence, emotional violence, even sexual violence, but either or both of those partners may or may not believe that is a traumatic experience for him or herself, correct?
Yes, sir. People mistake the stimulus about what happens as the trauma. The trauma is really the reaction to it. So bad things that happen, people don't always react in the same way to them. So yes, sir, that's correct.
So for instance, a homicide detective or a homicide prosecutor may go out to a scene and see a freshly dead body, and their perception of that environmental stimulus may be very different from somebody who works at Dunkin' Donuts and just gives us muffins in the morning coming across a dead body. Is that fair?
Yes, sir. That homicide detective may be able to go eat lunch right after it, and the other person who works at the donut restaurant may not be able to eat for a couple of days as a result. So, yes, perception is a big part of how trauma occurs.
And I understand your answers today, and I'm not saying that they were different the other day. But I understand you to say that it's very important to do a comprehensive evaluation to get the full picture of what is going on in the perceived battered spouse's mind, correct?
When we approach.
Yes.
This is, you guys, anybody ever been to a chiropractor? What do you guys think about chiropractors? Legit, not legit, not for you, saved your life, didn't save your life? Look at this guy. Chiropractor almost suffocated this man. Oh my God. Jesus Christ. What the hell is this? Oh my God. Bro is not coming back to this place. They say it really depends where you go, though. Like you got to be selective. I went one time, I didn't like it. When I was working years ago in the hospital, because I was standing on my feet all the time, like long periods. Sometimes I do doubles and stuff. It was really, I was wearing bad shoes. I had to get some really comfortable shoes, but I went a couple of times and, like, I don't know, my back just hurt more. Now I know they say, oh, the more it's supposed to hurt. Okay, I guess they said it's supposed to hurt. And that's it. That means it's getting better, I guess. But for me, I felt like it made it worse. I went a couple times and I said, no, fuck that, man. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to listen to my body. My body, I don't. That was crazy, though. I don't know what he was doing here. He was literally choking.
The objection is overruled.
Bro.
So,
he can't breathe, I guess?
We're talking about the importance of doing a comprehensive evaluation with as many collateral sources as one could possibly have when making an assessment about battered spouse syndrome, correct?
Yes, sir. It's a relevant piece of information. Yes, sir.
And would you agree that obviously the person who is accused of committing a crime, there are credibility issues that you do need to care for when relying upon that person's history provided about the events leading to that and past events describing the relationship with the intimate partner.
Yes, sir. In every forensic evaluation, that's the case.
Is this particularly important if there's a comorbidity with an alcohol abuse disorder?
Yes.
And can you tell the jury what alcohol abuse disorder means in the DSM-5 TR?
Sure. It's the biggest part of it is it's not just the use of alcohol, it's impairment that happens as a result. So it's the excessive use of alcohol, but that could mean something different, just like the excessive use of marijuana might mean. But it's the use of alcohol to the degree that it impairs or infects a person's life. And with that may come a lot of other things like deceitfulness or aggression or unreliability, sleep or somatic problems, difficulties. So, but the important thing to remember there is that it's the use of a substance that impairs or affects a person's life.
And if there is alcohol involved in the histories being given about either the event in question or any preceding events, must the evaluator take that into account when evaluating the memories and perceptions of the person giving them that history?
Yes, so in introducing that new topic about memory, we know that substances can interfere and impair memory. So as a result of that, you'd want to know what they were using, how close it was. If you're talking about a particular event, like a crime, you'd want to know if there was substance usage, and if so, what the person's memory functioning was, and does that match up with other sources of information about what those events were.
Are you familiar with the narcissistic personality disorder?
Yes, sir, of course.
Is that something recognized in the DSM-5 TR?
Yes, sir.
And can you tell us whether or not if a person who is giving a history, whether it's the patient/client or whatnot, has traits, perhaps not a diagnosis, but even just traits of the narcissistic personality disorder, is that something the evaluator should account for in evaluating the credibility of the history given?
Yes.
And why is that?
Well, because all forms of disorders or conditions or just traits may lead to inaccurate information, either not purposely or purposely. They may be deceptive. So certain personality disorders or traits can lead to deception or inappropriate or inaccurate information. That's why you need more than one source of information. Does what this person is saying to me check out with other sources of information?
And I don't mean to quiz you on it, but can you tell us some of the criteria for the narcissistic personality disorder?
I can, yes, sir. So it is a grandiose sense of self-worth. It's the consideration of yourself over anybody else. It's kind of operating in your own world. So it's an inflated sense of who you are. It's a misperception of how important you are to other people and your meaning to other people. It's a sense of specialness, that you stand out from other people in terms of special skill or skills, and that other people, if they don't recognize that, they should recognize that. So the heading, the biggest heading there is an inflated sense of self-esteem and grandiosity.
Are you familiar with an adjustment disorder diagnosis?
Yes, sir.
And is that in the DSM-5 TR?
Yes, sir, correct.
Can you tell us about that?
Adjustment disorder is a person's reaction, and it could be emotional, it can be behavioral, or it can be both, to a situation that occurs. You broke up with your boyfriend or girlfriend, so you're upset about that. And so as a result, you're tearful, you're anxious or nervous or worried about what may happen to you as a result of breaking up with them, or you behaviorally may start not going to work. Or get into more arguments or fights with your children as a result. So it's a temporary reaction to a stressful situation that occurs in some individuals.
And hypothetically, if a person who is giving a history for criteria of diagnosis, let me strike that. If somebody is giving a history and that is being used to come to an evaluation conclusion of battered spouse syndrome, if that person has been diagnosed with adjustment disorder predating the traumatic relationship, is that something the evaluator should take into account?
You'd want to know any prior diagnosis because it may not necessarily be exclusionary, but it could. So adjustment disorder is a temporary reaction. You're upset in a temporary period, and most of them just go away on their own. Whereas something else like a traumatic stress disorder is long-term. It's something that a person's stuck with for a period of time that usually doesn't just go away on its own. So yes, you'd want to know that for that term I used before, that differential diagnosis. You'd want to know those things to compare and contrast them and hold them up against each other.
Now, hypothetically, if somebody says things like, I'm the best thing that has ever happened to you, and I'm the best you'll ever do, are those indications of the narcissistic personality disorder?
Well, they could be. You wouldn't want just that alone. You'd want to see if that was happening in other settings. Is that happening on the job, with friends, with family members? Is it showing up on psychological testing? But certainly that would be a red flag. You'd go, I want to pay more attention to that. I want to investigate that further.
And is it important when evaluating trauma-based disorders,
I'm going to show it.
because they're based on emotional reactions, to do that rule out on alcohol or drug use?
Certainly you'd want to do that. It's not usually disguised as a trauma-based disorder. Alcohol and trauma aren't usually rule-outs for each other, but it could exacerbate a condition. It could make you diagnose a trauma condition when it's just an adjustment disorder. I say just, I don't mean to minimize it, but it's not as serious as a trauma-based disorder.
Is it important to consider whether the abuser and or the abused behave differently in the absence of alcohol or drugs?
Yes.
And why is that?
Well, because you're trying to analyze a psychological condition. If, as a result of drug or alcohol abuse, their behavior changes or their perceptions change, that's not a psychological condition, that's a substance abuse disorder. So that's why you'd want to know that. So if their condition remains the same, maybe it's a little worse when they're using drugs or alcohol, but it's the same perception of threat or danger, then you're going to diagnose a trauma-based disorder. If not, then you're going to diagnose a substance abuse disorder. You can have both, but you'd want to rule one out as opposed to the other.
And are you familiar with the classic three-step cycle of battered spouse syndrome or domestic violence?
Yes, sir, I am.
Can you explain that to the jury?
Sure. So there's a cycle of violence that was first developed by a woman in the 70s called Lenore Walker, Dr. Lenore Walker. She's a psychologist who's usually credited with developing the whole theory of battered spouse syndrome. And in the classic model, which we know oftentimes happens, not every time, but in the classic model, there's a period of tension buildup where things are happening, little arguments are happening, there's bickering back and forth, there may be some threats or some loud voices back and forth, but it's all things that are leading up to a possible violent episode. Then there's the episode that happens itself, the violent episode. It could be verbal, sexual, physical, but there's the violent incident that occurs. And then after that violent episode occurs, there's a honeymoon phase where the person who's done the abuse, they're apologizing, taking that person who was abused out to dinner, buying them things, saying nice things to them, complimenting them to sort of make up for the abuse. And it's it's called the cycle of violence, and the reason why is it tends to repeat itself in a lot of these situations of battered spouse syndrome where you see this repeating itself over and over and over again. So people are kind of stuck in these revolving doors in their relationship.
And can one cycle be enough to traumatize a person?
Yes.
Does this trauma necessarily have to be coming from a man to a woman?
Yeah, she's done, apparently.
And in fact, as times have changed, language has changed, and so when we keep referring to it as battered woman syndrome in the courtroom today, what we're actually talking about now is battered spouse syndrome or even intimate partner violence.
Yes, so I mean, interpartner violence can happen outside legal settings, but it's really a kind of the large overgrouping, if you will, to be able to talk about all of these other things that can happen as a result, like trauma-based disorders and battered spouse syndrome. And you're right, the later research has kind of pulled us away from thinking this only happens to women in heterosexual relationships. We know now there's all sorts of derivations, and that men can suffer also from battered spouse syndrome, battered person syndrome, homosexual couples. So we know it goes around to everybody, but still, women are more often diagnosed with battered spouse syndrome than anybody else.
Does the trauma have to come in the form of physical violence?
No, sir.
Does it have to come in the form of sexual violence?
No, sir.
Can it come in the form of emotional or mental violence?
Yes, sir.
And would examples of that include such as running the partner down and telling them that they're no good and, just general insulting and lowering their value?
It could. Remember, that's the stimulus, so it would depend on how the person who's receiving that responds to it as to whether or not it becomes traumatic. But yes, sir, that would be the first red flag you'd want to investigate.
And you mentioned isolation before. So if somebody in a hypothetical intimate partner setting is trying to isolate the partner from his or her family members or friends or coworkers, can that be, and I'm not saying necessarily, can that be indications of intimate partner violence that could lead to battered spouse syndrome?
So sure, that'd be an example of coercive control. So if a person was doing that, that's consistent with that classification of battered person syndrome. Yes.
And hypothetically, controlling another person, the intimate partner's personal property or effects, such as a birth certificate or identification papers, can that be indication of emotional trauma towards the partner who is lacking the control over those identification papers?
So that's a stimulus that could result, depending on how the person subjectively perceives it, in some trauma. So yes, all of the things that you mentioned could be stimulus, if you will, that a person could perceive as traumatic.
And hypothetically, if one partner A gives partner B a gift, such as a bicycle, but partner A continues to maintain that the bicycle is his or hers because he or she bought it, even though it was a gift to B, can that be a form of emotional abuse towards B?
Sure, it sounds like control, but I guess you could interpret it as emotional abuse too, but it sounds more like a control mechanism that'd be consistent.
I'm not suggesting that it's legally or morally okay, but when one intimate partner does these hypothetical emotional things, non-physical violent things to partner B, if partner B has poor personal skills and coping skills and may be consuming alcohol, is it unreasonable or unfathomable to hear that partner B responded with physical violence to partner A?
Objection, assuming facts, not in evidence.
Sustained. Yes.
Bum bum be dum bum bum ba dum bum. Yeah, I've been just kind of scrolling X, the world of X. I saw this weird clip. I want to show you guys.
The DTaP,
time.
the HIB, the polio.
How old are they at this stage? 4 months?
4 months.
It means it's very hard to see this.
Yeah.
I mean, it's 2 beautiful boys' lives destroyed.
Yep.
Do they, I mean, they've just been sitting staring. Is this what their life is like? What can they do? I mean, I'm sorry to be so blunt, but I'm just trying to understand. I've never seen anything like this.
This is it. They're 2-year-old, 2-month-olds. You know, they're frozen in time. The shots froze them in time.
Let's just say a 2-month well baby visit. There's a DPT.
So,
3 shots.
If you remember the question, please go ahead.
So it would increase the probability of physical violence. So if those things, in fact, were perceived as threatening or abusive in any way or insulting to the person who they were directed towards, it would increase the probability of physical violence.
And then again, the perceptions are all in the eye of the beholder, whether emotional things that are said to one another or physical things are done to one another, whether the recipient of that behavior views it as trauma is a subjective decision by that person, right?
Yes, the perception is the impact. So that's how you would know that. It's just, water off a duck's back, or is it something that kind of sticks with me and I think about it all the time?
Now, you mentioned earlier anxiety, low self-esteem, and depression can all be components of battered spouse syndrome, correct?
Correct.
Is it important as the evaluator to rule out whether or not these conditions predated the violent or abusive relationship?
Yes.
And why is that?
Well, because where things start is important diagnostically. So if all of those things were in place, all of the symptoms that were just mentioned are in place, then you wouldn't attribute those to the abuse. You'd say those things were pre-existing. Now, abuse could make it worse, but in terms of your diagnosis, you'd need to know where things started. So if those symptoms didn't start at the time where there was abuse that was alleged to have occurred, then it's unlikely that it's attributed to that abuse.
And independent of any narcissistic personality disorder traits, would you agree that anybody in a certain legal setting has a motivation to present themselves in a certain way?
Yes, to do impression management, either depending on the outcome. So if there's punitive sanctions, they may lie to make themselves look worse, or as a result, if they're in other settings, like divorce settings, they may lie to make themselves look better. So there's always some impression management you have to kind of look through in your evaluation.
And that's important for an evaluator?
It should be looked at in every evaluation.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any redirect examination?
Yes, Your Honor.
Let's get this over with. Come on, move on.
Just want to
Let's go.
one more time. In response to the state's questioning, you indicated that where an individual's credibility may be in question, there is a necessity that the individual who's making the assessment corroborate whatever they're being told. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, in a number of different ways. We have psychological tests that assess for things called malingering or faking mental health problems or difficulties. So you'd want to do that. You'd want to look at other evidence to see if it's all consistent. So it's very important you don't just rely on self-report.
Is it possible that an individual may exhibit one or two attributes of a particular DSM diagnosis, but not actually qualify because it's simply not there?
Right, sure. So sometimes like social isolation can be because we're introverted, or it could be part of depression. So you need to kind of follow it out and see how many of the symptoms are there to see whether or not it meets the criteria.
So I may exhibit one or two symptoms of narcissism, but not qualify because I don't meet all of those, or a significant number of the indicators that you would rely upon to make that diagnosis.
Yes, sir, or it can be situationally based, like we may display narcissistic features here in a courtroom, but may not do that in any other part of our life.
Now, in your experience, have you determined, learned, either through your studies, experience, and so on, whether or not the abusive behavior may begin based upon an individual's perception of things occurring to him as a child or her as a child? In other words, if they grow up in an abusive household.
Okay, I understand.
Objection. Hypothetical, not known.
Sustained.
You've indicated that there are things that, I think in response to the state's cross-examination, that there are things that may add to or may contribute to a particular psychosis or symptom. Would an individual's background as a child include those type of criteria?
Yes, sir. You're more vulnerable to certain psychological conditions based on your history. So if you've been traumatized before, or bad situations have happened to you before, if you've suffered from depression before, it makes you more vulnerable to those conditions or other conditions later on.
Finally, one question or one symptom that we haven't discussed, I don't think, or maybe it was discussed by the state, was learned helplessness. What is that?
Learned helplessness, I've really spoken about it a little bit, but now we have the fancy term for it. Learned helplessness was really researched by someone named Seligson, a doctor named Seligson, a psychologist, research psychologist. And just real briefly, what it is, it's when someone kind of gives up and feels like there's nothing that they can do to change their situation. It was originally done with laboratory animals. But where a person really feels that no matter what strategy they've taken, like leave, stay, fight, whatever it might be, it won't work. It usually leads to depression or developments of other strategies, like I have to appease or please or make sure I do everything correctly or apologize. So it's really believing that no matter what you do, it won't be effective.
Doctor, thank you for your testimony. Thank you for traveling up here from Miami so early in the morning.
No problem at all.
Thanks for the rest.
Thank you, sir. You can be excused.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Can the parties approach for a moment?
Are they resting their case? Shrimp keepers that use Indian almond leaf have aided in increased breeding, better vibrant colors, better male-female ratios, and overall better health. Ooh. Now we gotta get almond leaves. Oh no. for a 2% brightness increase. Indian almond leaves. Ole, ole. I don't know, maybe they'll do closing. I don't know how long they're going to take with closing arguments. Maybe they'll do closing and ba-ba-da.
All right, members of the jury, it is 10:40 at this time. We're going to go ahead and take that mid-morning break. Similar instruction I've given you over the last couple of days. I'm sure you're tired of hearing it, but I got to keep telling you. Please don't have any conversations among yourselves or anyone else about the persons, places, things, or charge involved in this case, and do not conduct any independent research on those things. We'll see you back here in about 15 minutes at 5 till 11. Thank you very much.
All aboard.
Y'all may be seated. Thank you. All right, we'll be in recess for approximately 15 minutes. Thank you.
All right. Yeah, I heard about the McDonald's quarter. We talked about it earlier. The spreading of E. coli.
2-year-old, 2-month-olds. You know, they're frozen in time. The shots froze them in time.
So they're saying here, 2-year-old twin boys who each received multiple vaccines when they were 4 months old haven't developed any abilities since.
Let's just say a 2-month well baby visit. There's a DPT. That's 3 shots, 3 antigens. Hib, Prevnar, Hep B, polio, rotavirus. 6 shots, 8 antigens.
Other people who couldn't even come onto the bus, who had to stay outside the bus, and we had to move all of our equipment outside and interview them there.
We are going to stop this because this, see, she knows. It's all right, Kelsey. Children's Health Defence got your back.
Children's Health Defense. I don't know. Crazy. Alexis. I don't even think I can show you the picture. I did a check the other day to see how she was doing. And she looks so bad, man. So bad. Let me see. Oh my god. This was posted yesterday. No, 2 days ago. Oh. This is just horrible. So I'll just give you a little warning, but just an update for the people that have been wondering. Alexis Lorenz. She's claiming, they made her take vaccines when she went to the hospital, and I guess she had an adverse reaction. I mean, this is just, I can't even, I don't know, crazy.
The freaking broom closet. You tried to warehouse me, and every single time, the 2 times that I spoke to you after all of this happened.
She's talking to the doctor.
I only spoke to you 2 times. You never apologized. You tried to blame it on me. You told me it was a coincidence, that it was because of the PNH, that it was because of whatever other excuse you could bring up. And when I told you to look at the computer and look at the records of what shots I got because you told me I was going to get one and you administered and you ordered for the nurse to give me 3. Okay.
Hey everybody, thank you so much for watching our Sarah Boone trial coverage. Now guess what? This isn't
You to search that up and look at the computer. You denied it and denied it and denied it over and over and over that the computer's just not working or that you can't find it right now. You literally said the computer's not going to show me right now when it will, because the second they put a medication on there, it shows up. And you told the nurse not to do it or whatever. You hinted to the nurse not to look things up because she was about to type into the computer and look up the vaccines I got. And then out of nowhere, when we get back our results, they're all different. And the nurses and the doctors are sitting there saying I didn't get the tetanus shot, but when you guys gave me the paperwork of what I got, it said I got the tetanus shot. So I even have proof that you guys lied. But to Zara Pakbaz, I trusted you. I don't believe in getting vaccines. My family has always been against it. They've always denied doing that. We have religious preferences and not even religion, a relationship with the Lord as to why we don't need vaccines and why we should be safe with what we have and our trust in the Lord. And He gave us doctors to help us. I truly believe.
I don't know. So that's her update, I guess. They're saying supposedly now too. This is kind of weird. There's Maricopa County, Arizona. They're saying it could take 10 to 13 days to tabulate results for the election. What? What? Hold on.
Cases here. In fact, Maricopa County is setting the stage that tabulating all these votes may not be an election night thing. It may take days.
Wow. Well, 12 News journalist Colleen Sikora explains that county leaders are asking voters for patience and to be prepared.
Tight races, high interest in the election, and a 2-page ballot are leaving Maricopa County officials warning of lines on Election Day and also warning it's going to take them 10 to 13 days to tabulate results. 2 pages and an average of 79 contests per ballot.
We are expecting heavy turnout this year, and so that's why we're really encouraging people to vote early.
2 weeks out from Election Day.
That's really weird and odd. 10 to 13 days
are in.
More than 400,000 people have cast their ballot in Maricopa County.
That's out of an anticipated 2.1 million voter turnout this year.
We are seeing a little bit of a lag of where we were in 2020, but the last few days we've actually seen an uptick in turnout. So I am expecting that we will start approaching very close to those 2020 numbers.
What can impact the amount of results released and when? Early ballots dropped off on Election Day.
Our races will be close.
And on Election Day, lines are expected, even with an increase in vote centers and voting booths at those vote centers.
If you're going to vote on Election Day, vote in person and use that on-site tabulator so that those votes will be tabulated on that evening as opposed to dropping off your early ballot on Election Day.
The county adding more high-speed tabulators, more election workers.
We're increasing staffing at our ballot processing as well because, again, we're handling double the number of the sheets of paper. And so we are looking to both have extra shifts, night shifts, if necessary, in ballot processing, and then in the next step that takes place in election administration, and that's through tabulation.
But tabulation expected to take time.
We do expect that it will take between 10 and 13 days to
It's insane.
complete tabulation.
Wow. 10 to 13 days. Jeez. Speculation on the White House cocaine.
I was like, Mommy, you know, the thing about this, I always wanted to go to Howard, and I went to Howard. And actually, it was in the thing about this, I always like nook and cranny of City Hall.
Yes.
Important is that we also appreciate the nuance. You know, there's a lot to do.
Oh my gosh, people are crazy with the clips of her wiping her nose. Let's see. Maybe Torres Jr. was the battered spouse, right? Yeah. Oh, shit. Even the bystander's like, yo, tase his ass. Oh my god, he literally could kill 3 of them.
Come on. Dude, I swear to God.
Yo, this guy's insane. What the hell? He took off.
Holy fuck.
Yo! What the hell?
Tase him. Tase him. Come on. Dude, I swear
Bro.
Holy fuck.
Yo! What the hell? They go like, ah! It just and continues to go. And the cops are kind of like, I don't know. I'm not gonna let somebody try to let me run me over. I mean, he's lucky he didn't get shot. That's what the caption says. Lucky he didn't get shot. I wonder if I could find the original TikTok on that. I wish I could know the outcome or what happened.
Mais c'est pas fin.
Quiet, be quiet. Let's see. That's just the same clip. Damn. It's wild. Okay, I'll be back in a minute. Gotta take this call.
We are back on the record. 2020 CF 2603, State of Florida versus Sarah Boone. State.
David Cashor on behalf of the state. Boone J for the state.
Defense.
James Owens for Sarah Boone.
County Henderson for Sarah Boone. Kevin back on behalf of Sarah Boone.
All right, Ms. Boone is still seated at counsel's table. Yes, Mr. Owens.
Judge, we had several late witnesses that were scheduled. Where's that list? We've excused Detective Scott Lowen based on the testimony of Detective Capsell. We've excused Abraham Marino, who was going to be recalled based on the testimony of Detective Capsell. You've heard from the two deputies, you've heard from Dr. Brandon. Maria Gallipoli is a young lady that's outside. She was a witness as a neighbor in that complex, and she would testify about observing physical injuries to Sarah Boone. We've spoken with her over the break that, in our opinions collectively, Tony Henderson and myself, that it's not necessary to call Ms. Gallipoli because we have other evidence of injuries. There was disagreement about that, but I believe that Ms. Boone is now in agreement that we're not going to call Ms. Gallipoli. So that leaves now calling the Orange County Sheriff's Department phone extraction expert.
Mr. Waden.
Yes, back to the stand, and we've got two short videos. These are the short videos relating to George Torres with a bat and then striking the TV. They're less than a minute apiece. The problem with that is because we've excused so many witnesses, that's our last witness. So we're going to be done here in probably 11:15, and then...
But Ms. Walker is supposed to be here at 1 o'clock?
That's correct.
Okay, all right.
And then I haven't had a chance to meet with Dr. Harper, but I'm going to meet with her at lunch over next door. And we anticipate Dr. Harper this afternoon. And then we may be really close to ending the defense's case.
Okay, great. Thank you for letting me know that.
We're going to have a gap here.
Okay, so
early lunch, long lunch.
That may, well, if you're saying that your presentation with Ms. Waden is 15 minutes, I don't know what the cross is going to be. It may be de minimis, or you may be saving her for rebuttal. I don't know. Mr. J or Mr. Cacciatore?
I'm sorry.
As it relates to Ms. Waden, CSI Tech, you're not calling her in rebuttal?
She already did a predicate during her trial testimony during our case in chief of the exhibit. I'm going to put her in rebuttal.
Okay, awesome. So what we can do is we can proceed with Ms. Waden, and we could just take an early lunch and ask them to be back here maybe 12:50. So that way, if we have any issues, we can address them before we start at 1 o'clock. Ms. Boone, you were sworn this morning. I just got a couple of things to go over with you. There was a list of witnesses that was provided to the court last night and again this morning as potential witnesses that may be called in your defense. One of those witnesses was Maria Gallipoli. Your lawyers have advised that they may not be calling that person as a witness in this case. Do you understand that?
I do.
And again, similar to other conversations we've had, I don't want to go into any specifics of any conversations that you've had with any of your lawyers, just whether or not you've had them. Have you had conversations with your lawyers about calling Miss Gallipoli as a witness?
Yes.
Have you had conversations with your attorneys about why they are deciding not to call her as a witness?
Yes.
And similar to what we discussed yesterday, do you understand that your attorneys make the trial strategy decisions, including what witnesses to call or not to call?
Yes.
Okay. Are you still satisfied with their representation of you in this matter?
Yes.
And are you still on board with the strategy that has been employed in your defense?
Yes.
Are you in agreement with the strategy not to call Ms. Gallipoli as a witness in this case?
I am.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, ma'am. Then let's go ahead and bring our jury back in, and we can call Ms. Waden and go from there.
Mr.
All right.
Can you excuse Ms. Gallipoli?
All right. Thank you very much. Let's go ahead and stand and bring back in our panel.
Mr. Owens, how do you spell Gallipoli?
But I have Galipoli.
2 L's, G-A-L-L.
Oh, it's 2 L's.
All rise, prisoner.
State, do you recognize our jury?
Yes, Your Honor.
Defense, do you recognize our jury?
Yes.
I think you all could be seated. Members of the jury, once seated again, if you could confirm that you complied with the court's instructions during our break by raising your hands. Record reflect all hands have been raised. Defense, you may call your next witness.
Judge, we would call forensic phone extraction officer with the Orange County Sheriff's Department, Officer Waden, to the stand.
Thank you. We'll bring her in.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony you should give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? I do.
Good morning, ma'am. Could you state and spell your name for the record for us?
First name is Janella, Junella. Last name Waden, UAD as in Delta, AN.
Counselor, you may inquire.
Ms. Waden, again, your official title?
Digital Forensics Examiner.
And are you referred to as a detective, or what is your...
Just an examiner.
Ma'am, Judge, can I approach the witness?
Yes, of course.
Ma'am, I'm going to show you what has been marked as identification defense exhibit AA. And you recognize that video, or that CD of the video?
Yes.
Well, I think we kind of prepped you on it ahead of time. That was extracted from the Sarah Boone phone that you were asked to extract?
Yes, one of the media files, yes.
Okay, and is that video a fair and accurate depiction of one of the videos that was extracted from Sarah Boone's phone?
Yes.
And then identification Z, defense identification, same type question. You've had a chance to review that video, and is that one of the videos that was extracted from the Sarah Boone phone?
Yes.
Judge, this time I'd like to have these introduced in evidence.
Any objections?
No objection.
All right, what was pre-marked as AA will be received into evidence without objection as defendant 17. What was pre-marked as Z will be received into evidence without objection as defendants 18.
Exhibit 17 first.
You may proceed.
And is there a volume? Judge, do you have control of the volume?
Volume is on.
You're gonna help me take this shit out. Real shit. You're gonna help me take it out. You're gonna help me take this shit out. As bad as I want to.
Judge, I'm asking to publish Exhibit 18.
You may proceed. Say again, sir.
You spoke about it earlier.
Yes, understood.
They're tendering, no cross.
All right, thank you very much. This witness can't be released, correct?
Yes.
State?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. All right, can the parties approach momentarily, please? Members of our jury, at this point in time, it's 11:08. I know it's a little bit early, but due to the pacing and how quickly we've been moving through the evidence this morning, and how the defense has teed up their witnesses for this afternoon, we do not have anyone until 1 o'clock. So at this time, we're going to go ahead and take our lunch break at this time. I'm going to give you a similar instruction that I've given you over the last couple of days. Jurors, you must not conduct any investigation on your own. This includes reading newspapers, watching television, or using a computer, cell phone, the internet, any electronic device, or any other means at all to get information related to this case or the people and places involved in this case. This applies whether you are in the courthouse, at home, or anywhere else. You must not visit places mentioned in the trial or use the internet to look at maps or pictures to see any place discussed during the trial. Jurors do not watch local news or read local newspapers. Jurors must not have discussions of any sort with friends, family members, or even your fellow jurors about the case or the people and places involved. So do not let anyone make comments to you or ask questions about the trial. I want to stress again that just as you must not talk about this case face-to-face, you must not talk about this case by using an electronic device. You must not use phones, computers, or other electronic devices to communicate. Do not send or accept any messages related to this case or your jury service. Do not discuss this case or ask for advice by any means at all, including posting information on an internet website, chat room, or blog. With that, members of the jury, I'm going to ask you to return here to 12 Alpha at 12:50, and we'll pick up shortly thereafter. Thank you so much for your service. Y'all may be seated. Thank you. State, anything we need to address?
Nothing, thank you.
Defense?
No, sir.
All right, we'll see you all at 12:50. Thank you very much. Court's in recess.
Where'd she go? They taking lunch break? Sarah, why'd you leave me? Don't go, Sarah. Don't go. Let me see something.
Chat by any means at all, including posting. You must. So do not let anyone major discussions of any sort this relate into the break at this time. It's 11:08. I know it's a little bit early, but due to the pacing and how quickly we've been moving through the evidence this morning, and how the defense has teed up their witnesses for this afternoon, we do not have anyone until 1 o'clock. So at this time, we're going to go ahead and take our lunch break at this time.
Lunch break. All right. Cool. Gangster, man. I got to go get some RO water for my tank. Gotta go to the store. Got jugs. It's a lifetime commitment. It's a lifetime commitment getting fish. That's how they reel you in. Paying a monthly membership. Pay up.
Her down because of that, and I'm not putting her down because she's a woman. I'm not a feminist, so I'm sorry. But at the end of the day, I don't think that she has the personality. I don't think that she has what it takes to go up against Putin and go up against these other presidents that are built for this. I don't want to be scared because my president is scared. I want my president to feel secure and manly and about it.
We brought up gender, right? Like, do you think it matters that she's a woman and people aren't comfortable having a woman in a top leadership role?
No, I don't think that, because most men, they love their mothers. They love their wives. So as a woman, most men, they respect a woman, but she just don't have the qualification or the education to really run America because she don't have the experience. She don't understand our struggles. And for me to believe you for another 4 years, you're crazy.
Right.
Like, you're crazy. You're saying the same thing that you said 4 years ago.
So the fact that she's the vice president
That's
to
just
you
the
is
bottom line.
You're like, you've been here, you've had a chance.
Yes. Well, for me, the very first time I ever heard the name Kamala Harris, it was in association to locking up parents for a truancy. That was the first time I ever heard of her name. And I really didn't understand how this person claims to be a black woman, but yet she's locking up black women and black men and separating families.
This is the thing that is, Trump talks about this a lot. He says, you know, Kamala Harris became black when it was convenient.
Right.
Can you Can you talk to me about, do you agree with him on that? Do you feel like she's wearing her blackness?
Absolutely. When she's sworn to the Senate, it was as the first Indian American. Which is, it's fine. We don't care.
We all know she's not black. Let's understand that. We are all clear of that. But my point of view, like I told you earlier, she's already been there. She's in office right now.
What are your feelings?
Oh God. It's gonna get messy, man. Y'all ready for election night? It's gonna get messy. Wife catches husband cheating. Oh, hell no. Hi. Oh, shit.
What's going on? Having dinner? What's going on? Who are you?
Which is friends.
I'm a friend.
Oh. It's very calm. If it was me, like I got caught up. What? What's going? How could you? Ah!
Friend? Yes, I'm a friend. Okay, well, I'm his wife. So, what kind of friend are you?
We work together.
Man, this is awkward.
You were planning on having your tonight. You guys are back to the LA. 3 hours from now.
This is pretty wild. This is pretty wild. Mother's incredible reflexes. Oh my God. Oh. Right about the leg. One leg. My God. Why is that shit open like that too? Oh, it's down the stairs, or I don't know. Is that a railing? Oh my God.
Bro,
if we survive, can I get your Snapchat?
Can I get your Snapchat?
Oh my God. Jesus
Bro, if
Christ.
we survive, can I get your Snapchat?
Bro. Yeah, I remember this clip. I saw it was a long time ago. This lady, I guess it was, a heroin or something. I don't know. That fat.
Hello. Is he gonna say something back?
Are they both? Oh, they're both lit.
Anything else for you, baby? Got it. Okay, why is this messed up like this?
I know, Ross. I agree. Crazy.
You got all that on there?
That's crazy. Damn, bro. I want to watch this video real quick too. It says liberal meltdown. Karen.
I want to know how you can vote.
We can't answer the door right now, but if you'd like to leave a message, you can do it now.
Shameful.
Are you the one that walks by here and always screaming at people?
No, I haven't walked by recently.
Okay, because a lot of people walk by and scream.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. You are voting for the devil. Don't you know that?
No.
Why are you voting for him?
Because I believe he is the moral candidate.
Oh, my God. you for that one.
That's
Moral?
exactly that's how your side acts.
Oh my God.
That's
He's
how
the
you
most
guys
immoral person around.
In your opinion, that's
Oh,
okay. Yeah, that's. I'm sorry. Have a nice day. Have a nice day. God bless you.
Wow. I mean, I wouldn't walk up to somebody's house just because they have a sign or whatever. I mean, it's their property. They can do whatever the hell they want. What the hell is this? I guess this lady's bored too. Upset, angry. Oh my God. Oh man, that's crazy. Okay, one more. Then I'm gonna go do the water. I should walk the dogs too first before I go.
Hello?
Hi. Wait. Oh my God. Wait. That's.
Hi. Who's this?
I'm looking for Hai Lin.
Who?
Hi. Can you hear me?
Oh yeah, I hear you. What's your name, buddy?
Yeah. So my name's John. I'm collecting ballot signatures right now for the Democrats. Are you home at the
Oh,
moment?
are you a liberal?
No, not really. I'm in the center.
I need you to do me a favor. You ready?
Oh,
yeah, I'm ready.
Turn around and get the fuck off the property. It's all about Trump. Can you hear me?
Got it. Yes, sir.
Hurry up. No,
Thank you,
that's my
sir.
bell too. That's my bell too. Run. Run.
Wait, it is?
Yeah. You're going to be on TikTok in about 5 minutes. Watch. Run. Quickly. Run.
Yeah.
Attaboy.
Oh,
He's going viral tonight. That's my little bitch. Good little bitch.
Jesus.
Good job.
Oh my God. It's gonna get crazy. It's already crazy. It's gonna get crazy, man. Well, they never sent me this thing. It's gonna get crazy. All right, guys. I'll catch you later, man. I'm gonna get off for now. All right. Thank you so much for hanging out with me this morning. We'll see what today brings.